Hey, good evening, everyone, or good day, or good morning, or whatever it is today, and welcome to the Philosophy Film Club. And today we got a live broadcast today, where we're going to discuss the film Star Wars, the latest film that came out at the end of 2015, The Force Awakens. And yeah, we're introduced. We've got a few guests here. We got obviously my co-host Adi, and we've got Jeff. Jeff's been on a call before, but Jeff from Chicago. We got Catherine from Florida, and we got Pim from the Netherlands, and we got Robin from Switzerland. So I'm going to hand it over to Adi. She wants to do a brief introduction, and yeah, welcome.
Hi, Pat, and hello to our listeners. We have quite an international gathering here. I'm so happy that you guys, especially Robin, requested this listener hangout. We haven't had one in a while, and I just now realized how much I miss them. I really miss getting together with our listeners and chatting about the movies that we've seen. So I do hope that our listeners are going to request more hangouts in the future. So we have another movie from the Star Wars saga, and we just had to talk about this one. These films have become part of American history and a part of cinema history, and as we were talking right before the show, probably a part of many of our listeners' personal history. This epic space opera franchise has been telling us the story of the eternal battle of good versus evil for almost 4 decades now, I guess. The first Star Wars, later titled, I think, A New Hope, came out in 1977, and it was followed by The Empire Strikes Back in 1980s and Return of the Jedi in 1983. And then between 1999 and 2005, instead of creating sequels, the producers of Star Wars decided to go back in time with the story, thing that I didn't quite understand, and it was quite unusual, and gave us the prequel trilogy with The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith, and God, I hope I pronounced that correctly. So I just wanted to give a little bit of a background. I know many people are aware of what's the Star Wars trilogy, but I think just understanding how far back this movie goes, it's important. So altogether, these 6 movies gathered a combined box office revenue of almost $4.5 billion. But the Star Wars franchise was a lot more successful selling its byproducts such as books, video games, comic books, gadgets, and other things related to the movie. And we have an expert in that today, which is Pim. He was telling us that he has consumed many of these byproducts. So Star Wars actually holds the Guinness World Record title for the most successful film merchandising franchise, and has generated altogether, get a hold of this, almost $40 billion. So more than a successful film, Star Wars turned out to be an incredibly fruitful enterprise and, in my opinion, an outstanding business idea. So although I'm not a big fan of the movie or of the story, and the fans will have to excuse me, I do have a great respect and admiration for this fantastic business enterprise, and for the way that the people involved in it have managed to grow it and keep it so profitable for so long. So today we're talking about Star Wars: The Force Awakens, which is the first sequel to the original trilogy, and the fans of this movie can now look forward to 2 more episodes sometime in the near future. And I have to come out and say I am what you may call a Star Wars virgin. I have seen many bits and pieces from these movies, but I never had the patience to sit down and watch one from beginning to the end. I did watch The Force Awakens, but to tell you the truth, I did it only because of this hangout. It took me 3 days to get through the whole movie. I had to keep pause it, and I didn't really connect with it, or didn't really appreciate it as a story and as as script. So I thought, I hope that I will change my mind in this hangout. I will let Patrick talk a little bit more about this movie, since I'm in no way qualified to give this movie a proper introduction. So, Pat, you want to take it away from here?
Yeah. I'm a little bit the same as you, of course, Adi. I mean, it's a film that I watched really excitedly when I was back when I was about 9 or 10 or 8 years old or whatever, way back in 1977. It was an exciting movie back then. It was, for sure. But watching it this time, I mean, I thought, it was kind of interesting. We had Grandpa Hans, and we had Grandma Leia, and then eventually we had Grandpa Luke. And, it felt like a sort of a bit of a, it felt a little bit. What's the word? When you go back in time and you're nostalgic, it's a little bit. But
melancholic.
Oh, well, there was melancholy, of course, wasn't there, with Leia and Hans. But one thing there was a new person who, of course, was, I believe, people, because I've only watched this film twice now, so maybe I've got this wrong, but I got the belief or the feeling that Kylo Ren was the son of Leia and Hans. So people call me out now if I'm wrong on that, but I think I'm right on that. But
no, that's correct.
That is correct, yeah. I was kind of reminded by Kylo Ren, and of course this is meant to be sort of certainly satirical, but I was reminded about a book I've been reading recently about from Jerome K. Jerome. He's an English writer in the late 1800s, and he wrote this sort of seems to fit perfectly with Kylo Ren. He says this quote is, "Swearing has the same soothing effect upon our angry passions that smashing the furniture is so well known to exercise, added to which it's much cheaper." Now, perhaps that was something Kylo Ren could have learned, of course, whilst he was smashing up the whatever it was, the Dark Star or the new Dark Star. But anyway, I thought it was kind of funny. He was kind of constantly on a rant and destroying things with his lightsaber. But I did think the best line in the whole, which kind of encapsulated the whole movie for me, was when Finn said to Rey, "How did you get away?" And she said, "You wouldn't believe it," and you wouldn't believe it. Believe me.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, jokes aside, and all that, and I will say that I'm not a great Star Wars fan, but I'm really curious. Obviously, if listeners want to talk about this movie, I'm not going to berate it entirely. There were some good and interesting parts about it, but I'm curious. What were people's? Anyone want to throw out there? What were people's overall feeling? Let's see, because you guys have watched the movie, watched the whole franchise probably, right? Or watched a large part of it. So, what was your overall feeling about this movie?
The short of it from my end is that I was underwhelmed. As the movie started, I cheered with everybody as the title crawl began and the music was pounding. I was definitely excited to see the movie. I tried to temper my expectations as best I could, and of course it starts off essentially the same way that what was later titled Episode 4, A New Hope, starts out with one of the protagonists putting the secret information into a droid, sending the droid away. And then he's captured, and so immediately I drew that parallel back to A New Hope, and thought, okay, well, looks like they might be doing just a little bit of an homage here. Hopefully, that's where the parallels end. But as the movie went on, there were more and more qualities that had been taken from other installments in the original trilogy, and by the end of it, I really wasn't all that impressed. But that doesn't mean there's not a lot to talk about with it, and certainly happy to be here. And like I said before, hear Robin's thoughts on it, because he clearly enjoyed it very much, and certainly willing to be swayed on any aspects of the movie that I don't enjoy right now.
Sure.
No, but before we go to Robin, I just wanted to mention, Jeff, I haven't seen the other movies, but I did read a little bit about, I read a few reviews of The Force Awakens, and apparently the parallels, as you said, are never ending. And it's surprising to me that these people are managing to still milk this old cow, and 40 for almost 40 years later, telling the same story and even using the same imagery is just a repetition and a cloning of an old success that
Right.
still produces money. It says quite a bit about the culture.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's exactly what I was saying to you and Patrick earlier. Is that it's very similar to what happened with Avatar, in that Avatar has any number of elements that were taken from that were very obviously taken from earlier works in film and literature, and yet still it made a ton of money. And I certainly, of course, went to see it myself in 3D because of the reputation of it being such a spectacle. It's one of those things that you just have to do it, because you're only going to get one chance to see it in the theater, probably, unless there's some kind of very limited re-release at some point in the future. But as with Avatar, I wonder if The Force Awakens also doesn't have a similar fate waiting in store, in that it's going to be forgotten eventually, because it retreads so much familiar territory, and the satisfaction of it, at least in my experience and in the experience of other people who have seen it and not been so impressed with it, is very fleeting.
Yeah, it seems that the culture appreciates more remixes than original work overall. I mean, of course, there are exceptions. And on this note, I just wanted to mention for our listeners, if you're interested in this phenomenon, you can go on YouTube and look for a fantastic documentary called "Everything is a Remix." And these guys have put together a documentary talking about how everything creative, from music to movies, is pretty much 90% a remix of the old stuff. And of course, the documentary touches a little bit on intellectual property, and I'm sure our listeners will appreciate that. So just wanted to put that out there.
Right. What was the name of it you said again?
Everything is a Remix. You'll find it on YouTube.
Remix.
It's like a 40-minute documentary. It has 3 parts.
All right, I'll definitely check that out.
I think. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no.
Okay. Well, in this regard, I think it's also interesting to mention that the movie was directed by J.J. Abrams, who also did the Star Trek reboot, and I think the goal was very clearly not to make a good movie for Star Wars fans, but to make a Star Wars movie that was, how do you say that? That was inviting for non-Star Wars fans. So I don't think you should really, similarly to the reboot of the Star Trek franchise, you shouldn't really see this as a Star Wars movie, but as a regular movie with some Star Wars in it. And I think that, and the choice to do that right now, business-wise, was very smart, but it also has its effect on the quality of the movie.
You know, I definitely saw that, the parallels with the Star Trek film, in that they were sort of making Star Wars like cool again, if that makes sense, because you see this updated cinematography and kind of like richness and sort of. I mean, I quite enjoyed the film, and I think part of what is compelling about this repetition of the story is like I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. Like, you see that kind of repetition in the work of like Shakespeare. You know, I mean, this isn't direct to our culture today.
Oh, sure, yeah. If it's a story well told, then. In my opinion, also, it really doesn't matter if there's a lot of repetition. It's just how those elements are used, and whether or not it's compelling in the end. There's any number of movies on my shelf that have elements that have been recycled, but they were compelling, and they were done in such a way that they work. Man of Steel being one of them.
Right, can someone just point out, because I mean I've watched this movie twice and I'll be honest with you, I'm still a little bit baffled, but I assume it to be true, but I could be completely wrong. Was the robot R2D2 at the very beginning?
R2D2 is one of the original droid companions in the original trilogy.
Right.
And in A New Hope, he's originally the carrier for the Death Star plans that they need to deliver to the Rebel Alliance to be able to try to find some kind of weakness to exploit.
Yeah, but in this one, R2D2 only shows up towards the end. We have the new model, the R2D2 2.0, which is, I think it's called BB-8. And BB-8. I really, to tell you the truth, that's the one of the few parts of the movies that I found that I really liked. It reminded me of Wall-E, and they managed to make R2D2 even more likable, by creating this,
like he wasn't
this new model.
Yeah.
Plus he's more mobile. I mean, R2D2 had those little wheels. This guy could climb steps, could run through the forest. He was more technically advanced, so to speak.
Didn't R2D2 survive being in the open air on a Republican wing of a X-wing or something back in the day?
Yeah.
I'm really cheesing, but I mean, but he was. There was certainly some of the mechanics of R2D2 in that robot, right?
Certainly, yeah. Like the speech pattern and. I did I will confess I did like the little purring that he would make when he was trying to coax somebody into helping him out. He would make that cat purr sound.
One of the thoughts I had was that I think Rey, when we first meet Rey in the movie, she's doing some stuff in the desert. I don't know what, and obviously. This robot turns up and she sort of decides to sort of befriend it and stuff like that. And she sort of gets almost an immediate emotional connection with this robot. And I was kind of perplexed by that. It was like, this woman can fly the Millennium Falcon and can, wield a lightsaber like there's no tomorrow. But yet she suddenly has this emotional connection with some mechanics and of course, she's kind of I think her job is kind of like scavenging mechanics and stuff like that. So, and then she decides not to sell this robot for like lots of money at the time. At least that's what it was inferred, at least. And I was curious how other people thought about that particular, relationship. Such.
I thought that was really interesting too, and especially the way she treated BB-8 and how that was different from the way she treated someone like Finn. She sort of was very cooing to BB-8, said things like, "Hey, are you?" when they were flying around in the Millennium Falcon, "Hey, are you okay, BB-8?" And then she yells at Finn, dismissively, like, "What are you doing back there?" So her sort of fondness for BB-8 compared to her lack of fondness for humans, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah,
and
it felt like the relationship between her and Finn was like a husband and like was it the satirical husband and wife,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like a husband and wife about to divorce. A terrible relationship between a husband and wife. But you see, Catherine, BB-8 is not part of the patriarchy, so she has no resentment towards BB-8. He's more like a dog. But Finn, although he's probably considered socially disadvantaged because he's black, so that's pretty much why she's cutting him a break, he is part of the patriarchy, so she has very little patience for Finn. And especially that scene, that pissed me off so much when she's sitting there and she's pointing to the part that she wants Finn to give her. And she's like, "No, not that. The one I'm pointing at. Well, tell the guy which one you want." I mean, that's. I didn't know what to make of that. That was quite irritating to watch.
Well, how about stop taking my hand? What did you think of that, Adi?
Yeah, I heard that bit. Sorry, go on, Aiden.
I don't know, some Beyonce song started to play in the background when I saw that.
Yeah.
That part definitely frustrated me because, a lot of young people are going to be seeing this film and like sort of portrayal like, oh yeah, girls don't want guys to hold their hand or something. I didn't like it at all. It made me really mad.
I think that. Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
There is. I mean, I understand that there's like this. There's like this whole feminism dynamic going on in society right now, and so when we see this woman being strong and independent, that kind of flips us off in the whole feminism sense. I personally am not too bothered by it. I think it's more personal preference, and if it's her personal preference, that's fine. I think that the whole strong independent woman thing is more annoying with her ability to do a whole cool bunch of stuff that all the men have to work really hard for, whereas she can just do these things out of nowhere, rather than her being independent. Because I mean, she was raised not at all, so she is independent, but that she has then this ability to actually do all this stuff to take care of herself. I think that's much more awkward than her being independent, or maybe even somewhat disingenuous towards Finn.
I was also thinking about the sort of some lack of boundaries you see within the characters in the film. Like Finn and Poe are very fast friends. They spend like 20 minutes together and then they're like besties. But it's true that Rey had just met Finn, so I can understand maybe she doesn't want him, this like stranger holding her hand. But did anyone get a sense of how old Rey was?
She looked like a teenager to me, so I don't know, about 110 pounds and 17 years old or 16 years old, maybe 18 at the most. I don't think the age is talked about in the movie unless I'm missing something, but the way she looked quite young. So I'm guessing the creators wanted to portray, like the self-made woman. As far as I understood, she was abandoned or left on that planet. She self-parented. Her parents were not around. Probably she's still waiting for her family. The movie kind of alludes to that.
Well, that's the society's progress, right? We went from burned foster parents to no parents at all.
Well, we went from you don't need a father, and now you don't need any parent at all. You just need magic. You need magic because the Force is with you.
Well, but from what I got, she was left in the care of Uncle Platt. No, because when we see that flashback, we see him like grabbing her and say, "Oh, come with me, child." So to me, that was kind of an indicator that whoever left her on the planet was kind of putting her in his care at the beginning, at least. So I don't know if you can. I mean, obviously that's not apparent, but I mean, it's also.
Oh yeah, some parental figure. Yeah, I think I remember that scene now. I can't. But then we don't see that person anymore, do we?
No, he's the guy. No, he's the guy who hands out the portions.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, no, I missed it the first time too. So like second time, I was like, oh shit, like I missed so much when I saw it. So, but overall, I think like I don't get the sense that she's like this. Like feminist, like the irrational idea of like being overly independent, like because she's in a way she's independent, but then later we find out she's also like lonely. She's I think they say she's crying herself to sleep, and I mean she's really bonding with people. I think that might be also the reason why she didn't want to sell the droid, because I mean she doesn't seem to have any friends down there or companions, so. I don't know, like maybe that was just a way of her to, well, at least have something. I mean, even if it's just a droid who has like human like personality a bit.
Yeah, I got the impression the droid was a little bit like a baby to her. Yeah.
Like I don't know, more like a dog. It seemed to me.
Well, maybe, but yeah.
and the other thing I noticed on my second time watching it, in her little room or house, there's a lot of these childlike objects around. Like there's a doll, and sort of you see some sewing that she's doing, and she sort of seemed a lot more childlike to me when I was seeing it the second time. And her character almost watching it a second time seemed kind of asexual, like not really having so much of a gender, or sort of being this masculine, slightly more masculine female or something. I'm not sure. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think it might have also, I mean, there didn't seem to be that many humans in the desert. Maybe I just missed them, but weren't most of them like aliens of some sort? So, like, if that's the case, I mean, it's kind of, I think, relatable that she wouldn't develop like a strong, like, sexual, like, attitude or something.
A robot is
Maybe.
always programmable, of course.
Yeah.
Fair point. But also, if I may circle back to the scenes with the holding hand and all that, to me, I mean, just to give my impressions, I just found it kind of funny, like these little scenes. Although I'm pretty sure, like, it's probably just in there because she's a woman. Like, if she was a man, I don't think there would have been this hand-holding scene to begin with. Even though, like, if a man would to grab my hand, all the time, I would probably be just as annoyed as she would be. So I don't know about that.
Well,
Like, I don't know. I just found it like a kind of funny dialogue in between the action, but I don't know. It didn't really.
Well, let's just do kind of an independence check. She's alone on a planet. I think she's a teenager. She manages to survive on her own by scavenging. She gets up on the ship and amazingly, she knows how to pilot it quite well, I would say. She does a few tricks with that massive ship. She knows how to fix mechanical problems because, we all know how women are very much mechanically inclined. She gets captured. Finn goes to save her, but guess what? She does not need saving. She already saved herself. And I don't know. She is great with the sword. She can. What's his name? Let me see.
Kylo Ren.
Kylo Ren. Thank you. Actually, almost kills Finn, but then she gets a hold of the sword and she succeeds where Finn has failed. So the list is never ending. I think this is, I'm sorry to see that Star Wars has caved into the politically correct narrative, and they felt like they needed to have a female hero and a black dude in there. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's quite obvious that they're trying to follow a social narrative and to put the politically correct message out there, which that was a big turn-off for me.
She didn't. Hi everyone. Just as a defense for this, I'd just say like Kylo Ren wasn't full strength as Chewie kind of raged at him a bit. So he was kind of injured. Yeah. So I'm not sure, but the Superwoman aspect that seems to be like the main take most people have on it. I don't know. I guess I don't see it like to the extent everyone else has seen it. I just think she's just kind of raw talent, I guess, and I suppose it would be worse if she was just suddenly like just amazing, like straight from the off, I guess. But I mean, it is kind of pointed out that she has been flying, things around that planet, so she'd obviously like have some experience piloting. Like the reason she's so good at navigating the junkyard is because she knows it so well. So.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. What's your further take on that? What's her character? Do you think, Dan, that's
Well, I don't know. I mean,
makes her different to the usual, like say, feminist narrative, just plonking in some woman there that can do everything from the get-go.
Sorry, I'll try and turn off my video, but it tends to turn off my my camera as my audio as well. But I'll try it. Hello.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, you're still here.
Maybe you're not.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Put your camera back on, Dan. Doesn't worry, you only need a one-way camera, so don't worry.
Sorry, do I sound okay?
You do, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she's on that planet, and that's one of the things. I mean, she's basically like a young girl, like surviving on what's a very rough planet, but she hasn't been. I suppose it's one of them. I don't know. It's like she hasn't been taken advantage of because they're all aliens and you don't find her attractive. I mean, if it was full of like, you know, ogreish men instead of like aliens, it's like, you know, who knows what would happen to her. But she has had that opportunity to just kind of like develop skills, I guess, because there's nothing else. There's no, I don't know. I mean, I'd have to watch it. I've only watched it once, and as far as I'm aware, there's not that many other humans on the planet, is there, that she's on? It's like mainly other aliens. So it's like she's kind of been left alone to just do her own thing, basically, and wait for her family to come back, which would kind of make sense in terms of her having a lot of raw skill and it hasn't been like corrupted.
Right. I know that we talked some weeks ago about we were a mutual friend, and we talked about the character of Ray being the equivalent of the Greek, I think the Greek goddess.
Athena. Athena. That was John. Yeah, he was saying how it's. He did a video about that recently about his whole take on it, which was that she's like a sort of god archetype, and Finn's the Apollo archetype.
Right.
As opposed to, I guess, you know, the idea, you know, the idea that they're kind of fully developed, but they do have this kind of raw, like Finn's kind of moral, isn't he? Finn's got that kind of moral streak, which isn't kind of honed, and he hasn't, you know, but I guess Ray kind of has that uncorrupted kind of streak where it's like she's not being sexualized. It's like she's just been left to kind of become like very industrial. I mean, you'd have to speak more to about John about that, really. I could get him on the call if you.
No, that's okay. I was just curious to hear what you knew about that particular topic. But yeah, I mean, because it's an interesting point. It's something. Athena is not somebody I'm particularly familiar with in the Greek sort of in Greek narratives and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I thought it was a reasonably interesting one, and I thought it had some sense. I mean, I guess I know Bodicea is kind of slightly different and stuff, and you can have these great female characters stuff, and they can exist, and they're probably rare occurrences, right? And stuff like that in the real world. I'm talking about, make that. I'm sure it could have some polarity completely.
Well, I do think the fact that she's left alone kind of is the reason why she's so good as well. I do think that
she's almost unsated, right?
Yeah, she's on the edge of like the corrupt world. Like she lives in that. She doesn't like live in the camp, does she? She kind of lives on the outskirts and only goes in to get those portions, and keeps going back out to the edge. So it's like she keeps going back to herself. She keeps reminding herself, like, who am I? Where do I come from?
What do you think, Robin? Because I know you got some pushback on the feminist side of it, but I was curious what you thought about that particular angle on it. Maybe did it have any resonance for you, or did it make any sense to you?
Yeah, just before I know Pim wanted to say something for a long time, and I think Catherine too. I would love to talk, but I think maybe Pim wants to go first.
It's fine. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so now to me, I think if we compare her even like to the franchise, not even to other action movies, I think she's not even like that great. Like for those who haven't seen Episode 1, like not the first movie, but like the fourth movie, that's the prequel, so like the first movie chronologically. So there we have Anakin, who's a 9-year-old boy who builds droids, who builds pod races, who like wins the whole pod race, who blows up like the whole droid ship alone by accident. So, and I mean, his excuse is also like he was conceived by the Force, so he's just like better at everything naturally. And I mean, he's a 9-year-old, right? I mean, I by the way, about age, for me, I always thought of her as like early 20s, but I might be totally wrong here. But like, just if we would compare her to Anakin, I think she's already like not even remotely as good at stuff as he, and she's an adult, right? And so I think, although I think I also have to say I'm I might revise my opinion on her depending on how her abilities are explained in the coming movies, because I got the sense that like whenever she used the Force, like the Force was clearly ridiculously strong with her for reasons that we as viewers have no idea at this point. And I think aside from that, pretty much everything else is more or less explained by the fact that she, I mean, I can see she's good like at engineering a bit, because all her life mostly she's been crawling around in these large spaceships and taking out parts. And when I try to relate to that, I always think like, I mean, I don't know anything about cars, but I could imagine if I like spent 10, 15 years on a junkyard full of cars and taking them apart, at some point I probably get a bit like what parts belong where and stuff like that. So I can see how that like how she might not be too bad at fixing like the spaceships or the Falcon as a result of that. So I don't think that's very unreasonable to assume. And her fighting abilities, I mean, we never see her without her like combat staff. So to me, that's kind of an indicator. She knows how to use it, and we see her using it very effectively early in the movie when she has to fight off those two thugs who try to take away the droid. So I think that comes back then also later in the last fight scene where she, I mean, she's clearly better at handling the sword than Finn. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm jumping all over the place here.
Well, maybe,
no worries.
Maybe what you're saying is that you know that really learning the Force is just about learning how to wield a staff, which should be fair enough, right? Because she was able to wield a staff, so maybe that was why she was so good. But listen, I want to get Pim in because I know he's begging to get in. So come in, dude.
Thanks. So yeah, I'm with Robin on this one. I understand that for people who are not familiar with Star Wars, this might be a bit annoying, and I think this particular movie is not doing a good job in this respect. But so the thing about Star Wars is that there is the Force, which is almost like a religion that chooses its prophets, and these Force-sensitive people, these Jedi, are like prophets who have somewhat of a direct line to prophecies. They see things before they happen. They experience things differently from other people, and so one of the things that you, as Robin mentioned in the earlier movie, you see this Anakin who has insane reflexes, and similarly in this movie you have Rey that has her abilities, and they're not necessarily like amazing or godlike. They're just enhanced, and this is where I think this movie goes off. Even in the previous movies, there always has to be a certain amount of time until a Force-sensitive person becomes more adjusted to it. They need training. They need time to open up to it. There's always one or two things that they are really good at, quote unquote, naturally. And in terms of Darth Vader or Anakin, that is like reflexes and seeing these things, having visions even. And in terms of Rey, it's just everything. She's good at this, she's good at that, she's good at start, she's good at everything at the same time. And so I think that is where this movie becomes unrealistic. Not in our sense of unrealistic, which is of course the entire franchise, but in the context of the franchise itself, this movie is still unrealistic.
Within the narrative of Star Wars, this movie is unrealistic. That's what you mean.
Yes.
Okay, but so I have a question as a newbie to Star Wars and somebody that has not seen the other movies. I think we can all agree that the Force is great with this one, with Rey. Can't we?
Yeah, it seems to be the case.
All right, so my question is, in the other movies, speaking about consistency within the narrative, has anybody else displayed such strength and so much connection with the Force, you know, just like this, without training, without
Yes.
like it's has anyone else, has any other character
Yes.
has this happened? And Would you mind telling me a little bit more about that? Because that might change my opinion about this whole thing.
Yeah, Robin already mentioned the first movie. Maybe you want to get into that, Robin?
No, actually, I'm curious what you have to say, because I think, or at least from my perspective, she's uniquely strong, even like within the context. Because even Anakin like did it more unconsciously, but she kind of is way more like she can use the Force kind of way more than
like the
he
mind
did
trick.
at that point.
No,
Yeah,
but I mean,
exactly.
as far as
I'm
I've
curious what you
seen.
have to say.
As far as I've seen from the clips from previous movies, the Force kind of manifests itself without training in bits and pieces here and there, but there is no control, and I might be wrong, there is no total control over it and over so many aspects like strength, ability, agility, reflexes, mind control, all that stuff. So has any other character, have they ever displayed any of these traits, or is this just Rey?
Yeah, the arguments have been made that there is a clear precedent with Anakin in Episode 1, how at 9 years old he's able to build C-3PO, and also apparently he's the only human who can compete in the pod races. Also manages to somewhat accidentally destroy the droid control ship at the end. But again, in my opinion, that was poor storytelling too, so I really don't think it bears fruitfully on the subject of Rey. And also, Anakin did have to go through the full gamut of Jedi training, which in the end did not work for him, tragically. So that's where I stand on that.
The end of Anakin's career was much more spectacular than the start of Rey's career. So I think we should wait and see how this turns out in the next movies. But as a visuals fan, I was very disappointed with the lightsaber combat. So I think that maybe with some training and more time, the next movie might be more spectacular. I think that's kind of what you're saying here.
That's certainly possible. Yeah. But the other thing I would want to bring to people's attention is whether there's a rationale behind her skill set or not. If a character is good at too much, then they don't have anywhere to go. There's no way for them to grow except in this rather implausible way for Rey. What is it that the little alien woman tells her? That she's waiting for something. So she has these great piloting and mechanic skills, but yet she's grounding herself in poverty on this desert planet when ostensibly she could move on at any time and make a little bit better life for herself, and possibly already be out there searching for whoever it was that left her behind. And also there's very little, if I remember correctly. I've seen the movie once. I haven't seen it 2 or 3 times to try to pick up stuff that I missed the first time. But there's very little hint, that, if any, that she's meeting up with Luke at the end to do anything but just report back his location and give him back the lightsaber. I didn't see any hint that she was going there to pursue any actual training of her own.
Yeah, and I think that is also kind of where what is annoying here is that even if you say that she has all these abilities and stuff, and I certainly agree that it's no fun as a neutral spectator to see this almighty character just pop out of nowhere and then have no more room to grow. I also think it's very very defeating for feminism as a movement to have this quote-unquote role model, which I think they kind of wanted to set her as a role model, and seemingly have her be a role model without any effort. I think effort is very important in wanting to be great at something, and so having finally a woman role model who just can do all these things without having had to really work for it, I think that's a great shame.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I think the old Star Wars movies, they did put forth the message of hard work, of training, of years of self-control, and self-awareness and all this process that you get to go through and work hard at it before you get to be good at something, or before you get to really use the force. And it's really scary when you think about the kind of message that how it transformed through 4 decades, and what kind of message this franchise ends up putting out there. And it's not just the franchise is they're really good at business. I mean, they know what people want to consume, so I'm not blaming them, but this is telling me something about the type of culture that we live in today, and what kind of narrative goes on in the culture.
I don't think it's as bad as Elsa. If you're talking about like pure messages, where it's like Elsa was basically like locked up in Elsa from Frozen, obviously, was basically in a castle doing nothing with her powers, and then can suddenly like build like a perfectly symmetrical ice castle just by like dancing around a bit. I do think it's. I certainly don't think it's as bad as that. I think I think J.J. Abrams, he kind of laid down a bit of he laid down a bit of framework as to why she'd be good at things. I think. I mean, you could certainly argue that it's nowhere near enough for her to show the kind of ability that she does. But I do think she did. It's nothing she does is completely without reason. I mean, it's tough environments that she's learned to fight. Knows about mechanics because she's been in spaceships. I do think they made a bit of an effort to put something behind it. Which I don't know. I'd just say there's been other characters that feminists would have kind of looked up to that are just like literally just don't practice anything and then suddenly bang, it's there. I don't know if that was conscious when he made it. And I do think like in terms of like the other argument that they make is that Finn is like sort of like this bumbling idiot compared to Rey. But then, I don't know, I guess Rey's sort of free range and kind of free market and has to figure things out herself, whereas Finn spent his whole life being told what to do and hasn't, seen the world. He hasn't done it. He's basically been told exactly what to do from the start of every day, and then it's just like a moral awakening within him, and then he's kind of following that kind of moral path. And yeah.
Let Catherine talk. You want to say something, Catherine?
Well, I'm just going off of that point. I mean, Rey has also been a slave her whole life and told what to do. I mean, she's been abused. You see when she has a moment when she's cleaning one of her parts at the beginning of the film when she scavenged. She just takes a moment to think because she's looking at this older woman, sort of thinking about her life, something like that. But it's just barely a moment that she pauses and a guy yells at her, and she immediately goes back to scrubbing it. So I don't know how left alone she actually was, because I think she was actually being abused while she was being not parented and things like that. So.
Well, neglect and abandonment is a form of abuse. So even if she was not directly abused through physical abuse or verbal abuse, the fact that she was abandoned and she was alone, that is a form of parental abuse. So I think you're totally right. But
yeah, I mean, sorry, Eddie, go on.
Oh no, go ahead. I was about to.
No, it's just because I think the interesting parallel, and I think Pim mentioned this to me or to us before we broadcasted, was how similar this movie was to the first movie, and how, of course, Luke was the adopted son. I believe he was an adopted son back then, and then she's in this situation where she's almost like she's almost like a sort of a Luke character in her situation, and it's the same place. It's a desert. It's all all that kind of thing, and obviously there was. I don't know if there was. It's a long time for me to.
Ed, I think we just lost your audio.
Okay, I thought it was just me. I guess Pat dropped out. So while he's fixing his problem, I don't mean to.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I wanted to add something to the feminist stuff first before we move on. If that's
Oh yeah, please.
right. Yeah, I was. Damn, now half of what I. Oh yeah, no, AD, right. First, I think you asked like 5 minutes ago whether we've seen similar powers in the other Star Wars movies, right? And,
yeah, similar powers without training.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, not. Yeah. No, that probably not. But I think the only other thing that comes to mind to me is like Luke when he first like learns about the Force. I think a few hours later we see him in the Millennium Falcon trying to deflect like laser shots with a laser sword. And then like Obi-Wan puts him like the blind helmet on and he just does it blindly by quote unquote trusting the Force and quote unquote letting go. So to me the Force always seemed this kind of intuitive things that Jedi, like you can channel it kind of, but it's also more intuitive, and I think most of Luke's training consisted of like learning to like control the mind like in a kind of Buddhist Zen kind of way to not get distracted so that the Force can like effortlessly like be used. So from her perspective, I always got the sense like she, like whenever she did something with the Force, it seemed to me like a child just trying desperately something and then being just as surprised that it worked as everyone else in the audience. And I think you mentioned at the beginning that comment she makes when they meet her in the escape and she says, yeah, I can't explain it and you wouldn't believe it. And it seems to me kind of like that. But I have a question actually for people here about her being like super strong without training, because I remember we had like another movie, the Matrix, when you remember, and Neo is like also like say a guy who just gets ridiculously strong within hours and like surpasses his master and surpasses the evil bad guys, but like with Neo, I don't remember the comment being made about tying that to his gender or something. So I wonder like how much it's justified that, or how much maybe might view it differently. Like if a man gets this ridiculous power in these action fantasy movies compared to a woman, like why focus on the gender here but not in when a man? And I'm curious what people think of that, or if they think I'm just going.
Well, just to talk a little bit about Neo. Neo does not get these powers, and he's surprised at them. Like she is. He goes through training now. Of course, the training is accelerated because stuff is being uploaded into his brain, and this is how we get his abilities. And even after we get Neo having all this knowledge uploaded into his brain, he still needs to go through training, and Morpheus still kicks his ass for several times in a row. It's quite a painful training. I mean, Morpheus is throwing him against the walls and breaking walls with him, and later on, after this whole training, that's when Neo finally learns to control that knowledge and to control the powers, whereas Rey, she just has these powers and uses them, and she's even surprised. She's like, holy shit, I can't believe I just did that, So that's what is annoying to me. And I can't recall a male character that probably there are, but I cannot recall a male character, a male hero that doesn't need to learn to control the powers that he maybe inherently has or intuitively has.
Okay, with Neo, I think I was more referring to the like when he suddenly starts dodging bullets and sees the Matrix in this weird way. I mean, that was definitely on.
Oh yeah, but that came after how much training and how many conflicts.
They don't have training for that, right? Because he's the only one who can do it, and no one even knew that was possible.
Oh yeah, but then
it's not a result of his training. I mean, he does martial arts training, and he does. He doesn't even do gun training, right? So I mean. Yeah,
but when I was actually watching Star Wars, I was thinking, I hope in the next episodes they will explain this ability of hers to control the Force so much genetically, because that's or like Neo is the one. so he's genetically predisposed to actually achieve these powers and to handle the Matrix in the way that he does. So I was actually thinking while watching the movie, man, I hope they're gonna pull a genetic how do you call it, answer out of their sleeve, because otherwise it's just feminism on steroids, the way I see it, at least.
A genetic rabbit out of the hat.
Yeah, a genetic rabbit out of the hat.
Yeah, no, I think that's likely. That, I mean, because the Force, I think, maybe Pim, you want to weigh in on that, but I mean, it's always. I think in the first one they explain Anakin like having what do they call it? Like midichlorians, like this kind of like living creatures that make people more receptive to the Force or something. I'm sure there's a whole like canon behind that I don't know because it wasn't that well explained in the movie. But and I mean, usually Force users do have like kind of a lineage.